Hey, comrades, welcome back. We're here to talk about the main event for the year 2024. I want to say yes, we're so far behind, but it's 2 freaking years. We'll catch up. We're coming up. We're going to get through the main campaign story here in the next couple of months because we're already at like 30, I think, next week. And there's only like 40 something right now. And then we'll slam more events. But anyway, doesn't matter. Here we go. So this one is Nikke Perfect Maid. We get introduced to Privaty Unkind Maid, who is freaking. When I first started playing this game, she was one of the best lightning characters, and then Cinderella came up and showed her what's up. She's also a good shotgun character. She's kind of gone away from the meta. I think I still use her on occasion, especially when there's like a solar raid or something. And I'm not a big Privaty fan. She is hugely popular, or at least she was. Like you see tons of stuff better. They got all sorts of costumes, and her. It's like her and Diesel. I'm just kind of like, not my type. Because Diesel was pretty big too. But anyway, so we start off with the Made for You Cafe at Chica's. So we have Ade or Ade. I'm gonna go with Ade, is asking what it means to be a perfect maid. She's struggling with the inability to see if people are happy or not with what she's doing. And while she's serving people, she looks around and sees Soda making tons of mistakes, but people are still happy. She sees Coco being Coco and demanding and cute, and people are still happy with Ade. She doesn't see happiness anymore with people that she's serving, and she thinks about what it means to be a perfect maid and what she can do. A bit later, we are at the cafe talking to Coco and Soda. They are concerned about Ade, who's been like kind of sad hippopotamus, so have brought us in to help. So we discuss that they don't know what it is, but that something definitely is bothering her. We come back the next day, and we are going to initiate a plan. So we compliment Ade on her cooking and stuff, and try to get her to like open up. And she comes out. So that's the plan. So then when she comes out, Coco's like, "Oh, we brought Master here because he's helped us so much last year, and he's going to do some free taste testing for us and everything." And Ade's like, "Oh, let me go get the food." And so we notice that she's averting our gaze, and so we question her about this, and she says nothing's wrong, but something clearly is wrong. And then Soda comes out and is like, "What is that?" And we look, and there's a grenade. Like, what? So we all duck and it goes off. A bit later, Coco introduces us to the culprits. It's Privaty and Drake. Yep. They have this like crazy wild story about how like Privaty was with a triangle and they were doing something with Heavenly Ascension, and there was like a standoff downtown, and Privaty was like leading the group. And then Drake shows up because she was just bored or something. It's like, I will take care of this. And then one of the members of Heavenly Ascension like pulls out a grenade launcher, and so Drake knocks the grenade launcher out of her hands. It's like, ta-da! But the grenade launcher still went off, and we're like, oh no. It's it like bounces off and goes to the Made for You cafe. And while they're telling this story, Soda rushes in with some more pressing issues. Ade doesn't want to be a maid anymore. And we're like, oh no. So we go talk to her. She tells us that she can't cook anymore. She can't look anyone in the eye. She doesn't make people happy. She's all sadpotamus about that. And we tell her, no, you just need to rest. And then Coco and Soda burst in, and they agree that she just needs to take some time and rest. Oh no, we're not even at the cafe. Now we're at the hospital because the grenade and explosions, and Ade got hit or something. Or she's like, physically she's totally fine, but she's got some mental health issues. And we talk about how she's always trying to be perfect, and that she just needs to take a chill for a little bit. And that Coco and Soda say that they'll take care of everything. Drake and Privaty then come in to apologize, and we leave Ade to rest. Soda, once we leave, Soda's like, we are fucked. There's no way we can do Valentine's Day, which is coming up, all by ourselves. And Drake and Privaty say that they wish there was something they could do to make up for what they did. And so, of course, we have the idea, the best idea ever, and that is like, you two will now be mates. They're both like, no. Then Drake is like, okay, you twisted my arm. Privaty takes a bit more peer pressure from the rest of the girls, but eventually gives in. And what about us? Are we going to help? And we're like, sure, let's do it. So a bit later, we visit, and Privaty gets very concerned about the maid costume that she's wearing, which is pretty hot, honestly, if you're into Privaty, which I'm not. And it's like, the boobs are just like blasting you in your face and everything. And Soda's talking about how great it is, and that was the only costume she had, and Privaty's like very embarrassed, and it's like a cat made costume too. And she's like, isn't this small? And they're like, no. And we're like, no, it's excellent. And she gets like super embarrassed about the whole thing. And then it's like, hey, where's Drake? And it's like, oh, she went to Missless. Apparently they made her like a special maid costume. And she shows up, and she looks good too, not as like as sexual, but not as like fan servicey. And they're like, oh, wow. And Drake goes off about how the costume was like, there was like a whole team of researchers and like designers, and they did all this stuff. And then Soda's like, wow, what does it do? And Drake's like, nothing. It's just a regular costume. I spent all this time and money. And it's like freaking Drake, man. Soda then gets assigned to teach them since Ade's out by Coco, and she is absolutely terrible at teaching them. But then Ade like swoops in to like save the day. A bit later, we check on her. She says physically, again, she just reemphasizes that physically she's doing great, but that mentally she's still having like a little struggle session. But because physically she's fine and she is like the perfect maid, she can train them without any issue. So she spends a lot of time doing that. The next day, it's time for the new maids to be put into action, and they are a complete disaster. Coco rushes over to cover for them while Eddie is teaching Soda how to cook in the back, which is also a disaster because Soda is not a cook, and she's literally burnt everything. At some point, Coco demands that we sit and relax, and then Privaty comes up, and we go back and forth with her. We're like, aren't you supposed to be like guest master and all this stuff? And then she's like, what are you going to give us? She's like, I don't know. I can only do Omni Rice. And so we order that, and we're like, what about the magic spell? And she does it, gets super embarrassed. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of Privaty being super embarrassed about stuff. And then we eat it, and it's not very good. It's got like uncooked vegetables and stuff in it. And then after she leaves, we see Ade and go talk to her. And she's observing everyone fumbling around and stuff, but she gets upset at herself because the customers still seem to be having a good time during this like pre-event to the Valentine's Day event, despite all the mistakes and all how terrible Drake and Privaty are being made. This then gets her to be like super upset, and she like runs off because like her is like a perfect maid or trying to be perfect. She hasn't been able to do it, but then these girls who are just like fumbling around, they do like such an excellent job. So we chase her down, and she explains that she lost her touch, that by being perfect, she has ruined her connection with the people. And then when she saw the others making everybody happy despite being complete disasters, she got really upset. Privaty then runs up, tells her that she's being dumb. And we also say that, but much kinder. Privaty then tells Ade that she will prove that being a perfect maid is good and a good goal, and that Ade should not give up. And that this is what the people want. And with 5 days left till the Valentine's event, we find Privaty in the kitchen trying to cook. We interrupt her. It is pretty late, and she encourages us to go home. We're like, no, we're going to stay and help. And Privaty's having like a real hard time reading instructions and just like following basic instructions because that's all baking is. And then we mentioned that this dedication to her being a maid doesn't seem to have anything to do with the grenade incident, and Privaty reveals that it doesn't. She goes on some rant about how Nikkes are not treated well and how there's a lot of expectations about being perfect and how they don't really get appreciated when they do their job because like they're seen as machines by a lot of people and they should just be doing their job, and that makes her upset. And how she sees how Ade pours her heart and soul into this thing and she doesn't get appreciation, and that makes her mad. And so she wants to show her that she's appreciated, and it's kind of cute little thing. And she also talks about how like most people like in Triangle, and we've discussed in her Bond story, don't know that she's a Nikke. They all think she's just like a regular human. And so she hears a lot of like crazy stories from people about Nikkes, and it makes her really upset because she is a Nikke and she's got a lot of friends who are Nikkes. And so this is like all this stuff combined makes her really dedicated to trying to show Ade that she can be a perfect maid and that, it's worth doing. And so we decided we're going to stay up with her and we're going to taste test her food and help her with her cooking because we know what Ade's food's supposed to taste like, so we can help with that. And meanwhile, we see that Ade is watching quietly or secretly from like another room or something, or like a secret spot or whatever. So Privaty tries and fails and fails and fails and fails again. Finally, Ade steps out to help. She teaches Privaty all the things that she's doing wrong, like mixing up cocoa powder and chocolate powder, which is a big deal if you bake. And then Privaty, and several other things. And Privaty actually makes a good cake, and we're like, wow. And then she starts practicing nonstop for the rest of the night. The next day, Coco gives her permission to keep practicing while Drake, Soda, and her will continue working at the pre-Valentine's Day events because it's important that she can get like the perfect cake. The Valentine's Day event arrives, and Privaty is a fantastic maid, which is very impressive. She goes, and at some point, she like rushes off and grabs Ade and drags her out after giving her like this pep talk about, you can do this, like, you inspired me, and you still got it. And look, I did a perfect cake, and people loved it, and you just gotta feel it with your heart and power, friendship's magic and stuff. And then it comes out and serves us. She's able to look at us in the eye, and we're super surprised and excited. And then the rest of the maids are all excited, and Privaty and her hold each other and they cry about how Ade can still do it and doesn't have to worry about being perfect because she is perfect and how she'll always make people happy. And then we get this awesome cutscene.
いらっしゃいませ。いらっしゃいませ。いらっしゃい、主人。いらっしゃいませ、ご主人様。
Excellent. So after the Valentine's Day event, we visit. And Privaty's still there, and we're like, "Hey, what's going on? Didn't you? Haven't you paid your debt to society or whatever?" And she's like, "Well, I have permission from Eula to stay until I feel like I've made up for the grenade incident." And she talks about how Ede's doing and how she gets jealous because Ade seems so free now. And we're like, "You're free," and she's like, "Well, only here, but then I got to go back and be like in the military and whatnot." And then at some point, Admi and Eula show up, and they're like, "Privaty," and she's like, and they're like. And then Eula's like, "Wow, I'm glad you're enjoying your job, but I don't think I can be here watching a subordinate of mine act like this." And so she takes off. And then Admi's like, "I love coming here, but wow, I'm happy for you, Privaty. I'll come back later." And then she takes off. And then Privaty like freaks out and is super embarrassed and runs off after him. It's like, "Wait." So like hilarity ensues. After they're all gone, Ade comes out and we talk about how good it is to have her back and looking me in the eye again. And she's so thankful that we helped her, that Privaty inspired her, and that she's able to get like her groove back, right? How they got a groove back. And she mentions that she's excited to continue to strive to be a perfect maid and to serve others and to make them happy, which wraps up Perfect Maid. So now we're going to get to Privaty Unkind Maid's Bond story. So with Privaty Unkind Maid Bond story, it seems like this takes place during kind of the Valentine's Day event stuff. I don't know, maybe during Valentine's Day. Anyway, it seems like we take a step back with Privaty and her ability to be a perfect maid. So people come in, she's working with them, and then Coco, Soto, and Ade all help her kind of like get over her embarrassment and strive harder to be the perfect maid. And they're all impressed by the improvements that she's making. And then at some point, Coco mentions their final assignment in the mission that Privaty needs to do. And so Privaty gets kind of nervous about that, but then asks like, "Okay, tell me what it is." So a bit later, we're just hanging out in our room when Privaty shows up, and we're like, "Holy cow, what are you doing here dressed up like a maid?" And she's like, "Well, my final mission is to before I can become a professional maid is that I got to serve somebody as their private maid." And we're like, "Oh, okay." So we talk about that for a little bit, and then she's going to come here and make sure that we're completely satisfied with her as a maid, and that will help her be a professional maid. And then we talk a little bit about why she wants to be a professional maid, which is kind of like a whole other job. But she's really enjoying herself, and it's the freedom aspect and everything else. So she's going to return tomorrow and begin her tenure as our personal maid, and we should look forward to it. And we're like, okay, well, that actually sounds pretty good because, hot and Nikke's and stuff. So when Privaty arrives the next day, the first thing we asked her to do is to clean her room. Right. And then she's like, "Okay, but you need to leave." So we leave, and then she wanders our room and just snoops the whole time. She looks like a cup that we have on her desk. She thinks about buying it for us and doing all that stuff. And then we keep checking on her. Oh, and then she finds like a dirty magazine in our stuff. She gets embarrassed by that. And then she finds some music and she's like singing along to that and all that stuff. And eventually we're just like, we keep peeking in and being like, "Do you need some help? Are you okay?" And she's like, No, I'm fine. Just hang out. And it takes like 6 hours cleaning out like our tiny room. We've been just hanging out waiting. And so we start to get super concerned. And so when we finally go inside, we find that the room is exactly when we left, that she's done nothing but just like snoop the whole time. And then she gets mad that we're peeping in on her and we're like, "Hey, we want to help." And then we're like, "Well, maybe you can try something else tomorrow." So then she'll come back tomorrow and we'll try something else. The next day, we're going to try laundry. So Privaty takes all the clothes and heads to the bathroom where she's going to hand wash all the clothes, apparently. And while she's in there, she just like sniffs our clothes and finds undergarments and gets super embarrassed and sniffs those and spends like a whole hour in there just doing nothing, essentially. And finally, when she comes out, we're like, "That took a while. Are you good?" And she gets super embarrassed and red in the face. And we're like, "Okie dokie." And then Privaty kind of gets super embarrassed, realizes that she's put herself in like a strange situation and her feelings, and she feels like she should confess her feelings and say something, but then she doesn't want to because she gets embarrassed because she's like a tsundere or whatever. And I don't know if that's the correct term, so please I apologize for all the super weebs out there. I'm just a little weeb. Anyway, so then she, after getting super embarrassed, she like bolts out of the room, and then we're like, maybe we should check out and see what she did. So we head into the laundry room and just find like wet clothes hanging that aren't actually clean, and we're like, "Okie dokie, I guess we're gonna have to wash these in the actual washing machine." for the last day of her tenure, she's going to cook for us. So she does, and she makes the omni rice, and she's learned a lot from cooking at the Made for You cafe. But instead of using ketchup, she uses hot sauce. So 3 strikes, you're out. She then blames us because we've tempted her so much that she's been too distracted, and she kind of somehow like uses all this stuff talking about like the fueling of your curiosity in like cleaning our room and our clothes and all this stuff, and even has messed up her cooking. And she kind of like offhandedly like mentions that she likes us, and then it's kind of like a bad confession, and then she's about to run out of there, and we grab her and tell her that we like her too, and then she gets super embarrassed, and where we can move forward to like kiss her essentially, and she gets even more embarrassed and starts freaking out, and then we just like pat her head, and we're like, hey, we should take you out on a date and we can have a good time together. And she's like, oh, I love that, let's do that, let's go someplace and eat, I'm starving. And so she officially graduates from being a perfect maid and can now be a professional maid or whatever. And then we decide we're going to take her out and eat and anywhere that she would like, and this makes her super happy and excited. And that wraps up her Bond story. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.